The baby monitor crackled softly on Ethan's nightstand, a faint hum of white noise lulling the house into calm. He lay half awake, one hand tucked under his cheek, the other resting protectively over the edge of his daughter Lily's empty side of the bed. She had crawled in earlier with a bad dream, then returned to her room after he promised to check for monsters twice. Just as he began to drift back to sleep, there was a knock. Not a loud bang. Just a soft, urgent tap. Ethan sat up, confused. He glanced at his phone, 2:03 a.m. His heart ticked faster. Who would be knocking at this hour? He slid out of bed, muscles stiff from the day's work at the auto shop, and tiptoed through the quiet house. He paused by Lily's door, cracked open to the soft glow of her nightlight. She was sound asleep, curled under her unicorn blanket. The knock came again. Slightly louder. A little more desperate. Ethan moved to the door, instinctively checking the porch through the peephole. But it was foggy, nothing visible beyond the condensation. He unlatched the chain, turned the knob slowly, and opened it a crack. His breath caught. There, soaked from the rain, stood a young woman. Her long, dark hair clung to her face. She wore a torn sweater and no shoes. Her lips were trembling, but her eyes were what froze him. Wide, vulnerable, and haunted. "I'm sorry," she whispered, arms wrapped tightly around herself. "I didn't know where else to go." Ethan stepped outside, the cold hitting him instantly. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" She looked up at him with trembling lips and a searching gaze, as if trying to remember something impossible. Then, almost inaudibly, she said the words that sent a chill down his spine. "You feel familiar." Ethan's stomach twisted, not with fear, but something deeper. Recognition. A pull from a forgotten place in his heart. Before he could ask more, her knees buckled slightly. Without thinking, he reached out and caught her. And just like that, a door to the past cracked open, ushered in by the rain and a whisper in the night. Ethan guided her inside gently, careful not to wake the sleeping house. The moment the door shut behind them, silence returned, thick and uneasy, broken only by the rhythmic drip of rain off the porch roof. He grabbed the thickest blanket from the couch and wrapped it around her trembling shoulders. "Sit here," he said softly, gesturing to the worn recliner in the corner. "I'll get you something warm." In the kitchen, he set a kettle on the stove, his mind racing. Who was she? What did she mean by, "you feel familiar"? And why had his heart reacted like it remembered her when his mind didn't? He returned with a steaming mug of peppermint tea. She took it in both hands, her fingers brushing his briefly. Cold. Fragile. Still shaking. "I'm Ethan," he offered, sitting across from her. "And that little snore coming from down the hall? That's Lily. She's 4. And she hates thunderstorms." The woman managed a faint smile. "I'm Arya." It was barely above a whisper, as if she wasn't entirely sure of it herself. He waited, giving her space. The warmth of the tea seemed to steady her nerves. After a long pause, she added, "I didn't mean to scare you. I don't even know why I came here. I just walked. 4 hours. And then something about this house," her voice cracked. It felt safe. Ethan studied her face. There was something aching behind her eyes, something he couldn't quite name. "Do you remember what happened before you knocked?" She shook her head. "Bits and pieces. Darkness. Cold. A bus station, maybe. A fight. Someone shouting. But I kept seeing a boy. In a memory. We were little. He always shared his lunch. I don't even know if it's real." Just then, tiny footsteps pattered across the floor. Lily, with sleep-heavy eyes and tangled hair, stood in the hallway clutching her teddy bear. She blinked at Arya. Without hesitation, she walked over and gently laid her head against Arya's knee. "You smell like flowers," she murmured. Arya gasped, emotion flooding her face. Her eyes welled up, and she clutched the mug tightly as if it were the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Ethan stared at the two of them, his daughter's instant trust, the tears in Arya's eyes, and something inside him shifted. This wasn't random. This was something deeper. The next morning brought golden sunlight spilling across the kitchen counter, chasing away the damp shadows of the night before. Arya stood barefoot by the window, Ethan's hoodie hanging loosely over her small frame. She held a mug of coffee in both hands, watching Lily eat cereal with cartoon-like intensity. It all felt strangely normal. Too normal for someone who had shown up at 2 a.m., soaked, barefoot and nearly broken. Ethan entered the kitchen quietly, carrying an old shoebox from the attic. His fingers trembled a little, not from nerves, but from something deeper, memory surfacing. He set the box down on the table between them. Arya turned, curious. "You mentioned a boy last night," Ethan said, gently removing the lid. "Said he shared his lunch. Do you remember anything else?" She furrowed her brow, slowly sitting beside him. "We were always sitting under this giant oak tree, and he'd give me his crackers. I never had much in my lunchbox. Just an apple, maybe. He had these peanut butter sandwiches with the crusts cut off. I think he used to cut them for me too." Ethan smiled, lips tight with emotion. He pulled out an old photo, edges worn, corners curled. It showed two children, maybe 9 or 10, sitting side by side on a wooden swing. The girl wore a sunflower dress. The boy had a gap-toothed grin and held up a peanut butter sandwich triumphantly. Her necklace, barely visible, had a charm in the shape of a moon. The clasp looked broken even then. Arya's breath hitched. She stared at the photo, hand trembling as she reached to touch it. Her eyes flooded with tears. "That's me," she whispered. "And, that's you." Ethan nodded, his voice soft. "We were in foster care together. You came after me. I remember how scared you were the first night. You didn't speak for 2 weeks." "I remember now," Arya said, covering her mouth. "They moved me again. I didn't get to say goodbye. I looked for you for years after, and then I forgot I was even looking." Ethan leaned back, overwhelmed. "I thought you were just a dream I made up as a kid. But you were real." The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was sacred. Lily, completely unaware of the gravity in the room, cheerfully spilled milk on her pajamas and said, "You guys are gonna cry again, huh?" Arya laughed through her tears. And Ethan couldn't help but feel it, the universe was stitching something back together. That evening, the house radiated a warmth Ethan hadn't felt in years. Not just from the crackling fireplace or the cinnamon scent of Lily's bubble bath, but from something intangible. Something deeply human. A sense of belonging. Arya was in the kitchen, her sleeves rolled up, quietly chopping vegetables for a simple stir-fry. She moved with ease, like she had been in this home before, even though technically she hadn't. But the familiarity between her and the space was uncanny, almost spiritual. Ethan leaned in the doorway, watching her with silent awe. He couldn't help but remember how broken she'd looked just 24 hours ago, rain-soaked, barefoot, lost. And now, she was laughing with Lily, using bunny-shaped cookie cutters to cut carrots, just because they look more fun that way. She glanced at him, her smile softening. "I haven't cooked in years. It feels grounding." Ethan stepped forward. "You don't have to do this." "I want to," she said. "I've been wandering for a long time, Ethan. It's the first time I've felt still." After dinner, the three of them curled up on the couch. Lily snuggled into Arya's side, her eyes fluttering as Arya read from one of her favorite bedtime books. Her voice was gentle but full of emotion, as if the words meant more than just a story. Once Lily had drifted off, Ethan covered her with a blanket and turned to Arya. "You're welcome to stay a while," he said. "No expectations. No pressure. Just, stay safe. Heal." Arya's eyes welled with tears again, but this time, they weren't from fear or confusion. They were from relief. "You don't even know what I've been through," she said, her voice shaky. "You don't need to tell me," Ethan replied. "You knocked on my door in the middle of the night and trusted me. That's enough." She looked at him with something raw and open in her gaze. "I was about to give up, Ethan. I had no plan, no destination. But something inside me told me to keep walking. And when I saw this house, it felt like home." He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But in that moment, watching Arya breathe a little easier, watching Lily's tiny fingers wrapped around hers, Ethan realized something. Sometimes the most powerful kind of love isn't romantic or planned. It's the kind that chooses kindness without needing a reason. Weeks passed, and what had started as an emergency shelter became something quietly beautiful. Ethan's home had always been functional. Clean, predictable, filled with structure for Lily's sake. But now, it felt alive. Music played during breakfast. Houseplants began appearing on windowsills. Lily's laugh echoed more often, brighter and louder. And Arya bloomed. She had started therapy with the help of a local women's center Ethan quietly researched for her. She was even working part-time at the bookstore downtown. Every day, she seemed to reclaim a little more of herself. Pieces that had been long buried under fear, trauma, and years of running. One afternoon, Lily burst through the front door with grass-stained jeans and a drawing clutched in her hand. "Daddy! Look what I made for Aunt Arya." The paper was a crayon masterpiece, 3 stick figures holding hands under a crooked house with a rainbow above it. Underneath, in Lily's uneven handwriting, it read, "My family." Arya sat frozen, her hand covering her mouth as tears streamed silently down her cheeks. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. She leaned into him, not to be saved, but to simply be seen. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, they sat outside on the porch swing. The stars overhead shimmered like silent witnesses to something bigger than either of them. Ethan looked at her. "You know, you said something the night you arrived. That I felt familiar." She smiled softly. "You still do. Every day." He nodded. "I've been thinking about that a lot. About how maybe we never really lose people. Maybe they live inside us until we're strong enough to find our way back to them." Arya turned to him, eyes shimmering. "Or maybe we're not meant to find them until we know how to stay." A long silence followed, comfortable, warm. Not everything needed to be spoken. Inside, Lily stirred in her sleep. In the kitchen, dishes from dinner still sat in the sink. Life wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It was real. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan wasn't afraid of what came next. He took Arya's hand and whispered, "You're home now." She nodded, her voice barely audible. "And I'm not running anymore." And just like that, a single knock at 2 a.m. had rewritten 3 lives, through kindness, memory, and the quiet power of showing up when it matters most.